So today is May 22nd. I'm saying that for the benefit of those who might be watching the recording. And this will be our last Jews and the News session for the summer. Take some time off and we'll resume in September after Labor Day. So, and see what will be new in the news then, and see how we can continue these discussions, and maybe also look at some decisions of the law committee of the conservative movement that try to make Jewish law relevant for our times, and so we'll intersperse those with this Jews in the News next year. So I wanted to talk today to kind of follow up and expand, excuse me, what I talked about on Shabbat regarding the flag march in honor of Jerusalem Day that went through the old city of Jerusalem. So I just want to provide a little bit more information than time allowed on Shabbat morning during my sermon time, and just to say a couple more things that I perhaps neglected to say or wanted to say on Shabbat but didn't get to say it. So on Shabbat, the purpose of the sermon is to connect to something from the Torah reading that has some kind of relevance for our lives today. And for me, the connection was pretty obvious, in that we were told at the beginning of the book of Numbers that not only were Moses and Aaron commanded to take a census of the people, but we're also told how the people were camped around the Mishkan, the portable desert sanctuary. So we have a kind of concentric, not concentric circles, but concentric rectangles around the Mishkan. So the desert sanctuary is in the heart of the camp, with the cloud of God's presence hovering over the Mishkan. And then around that, the first rectangle is are the Levitical families camped around that, because they have easy access to get to work. So they have the short commute by being in the first rectangle around the Mishkan, because the Mishkan's a rectangle. And then around them are the 12 other tribes of Israel, right? Because there are a total of 13. Right, there's the Levi is a tribe among by itself, and then Joseph is two tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. So you have 12 tribes, 3, 3, 3, and 3. So right, for each side of the rectangle. Okay, so you can Google that, which I did, and if you click on images that you search for of Israelites camped around the Mishkan in the desert or something like that, you'll come up with images of what it potentially looked like, kind of a drone image today, but from medieval kind of images that were drawn up. And each of those tribes had a flag, and each family within the tribe had a flag. So that was my connection. The flags that everybody stood behind related to the Jerusalem Day flag march that happened last Thursday afternoon, leading up to Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, the next day. So I pointed out what is the point of having these flags? We don't know. The Torah just states that every person had their flag, and it didn't say how to make the flag. It didn't say that they had to make a flag. It just said that everybody had their banner, standard flag that they stood under. So the question then for commentators and for us today is, what would have been on that flag, and what is the purpose of having the flag? So what's on the flag? It could be a discussion for another time. We have no idea. We don't have any archaeological evidence to prove that there was a flag or what it looked like. But what's the purpose of the flag? Well, we could surmise that the purpose of the flag is to instill pride, confidence, and strength among the people. So when you have your own flag that you're standing under, it's pride. Imagine, when you watch the Olympics, the opening ceremony for the Olympic Games, it's a matter of pride when you watch the athletes from your country marching with their flag. You take pride in how large the contingent is, right? So for those of us who love Israel, you look for the Israeli contingent, especially in the Summer Olympics. They don't really have a Winter Olympics contingent. You look for the Israel contingent, and every 4 years, the contingent gets a little bit larger with more sports that they have athletes competing. So you like to see what they're wearing, what the uniform is, and you take pride in there's the Israeli flag among all the other flags of all the other nations marching around the stadium for the opening ceremony. So there's pride that we would have felt if we were there around the Mishkan with our flag. And it gives us confidence too. The pride leads to confidence and the confidence then is reinforced by the strength in numbers, that people would see all the other flags while they're marching through the desert, or even while they're camped, right? And so it'd be a matter of confidence and strength. Look at this. Look at all these people. Look at all these flags, how great we are. So now the danger, though, the moral and ethical, religious danger of pride and confidence is that it can lead to sinful thoughts, right? We could be thinking about these flags that could make us arrogant. It could say, hey, look at us, we're better. We could, a member of one tribe could say, look at us, our flag is nicer than our neighboring tribe's flag. And that it could engender a sense of competition among the tribes. And then also while marching through the desert, it could also engender a sense of arrogance compared to other people around them. Look at us, look how great we are great, you are not, right? And it could lead to that kind of feeling. So that those are not necessarily, these prideful, arrogant kind of feelings are not hallmarks of a religious society. Religious society is supposed to be humble and strong at the same time. So that could be contradictory. How can you be humble and strong at the same time? Well, if you have a strong self-esteem built on a solid foundation of values that you know are strong and provide you with the support and comfort and strength you need, then it's okay to be humble. Right? And while the people are camped around the Mishkan, they have God's presence hovering over the heart of the community. So that is their built-in strength. They don't need to show strength to other people. They have it within them, and within them, literally, in their hearts and minds, with the values they have been taught, and within them, as a broader community, because God literally is in their midst as this cloud. So that is the strength and confidence and pride that the people should have. And they should not take advantage of that pride and confidence by being arrogant or bullying other people. Okay, so when it's time to go to war to settle the land of Israel, then that's the time to use that confidence in a military form. But when you're at peace, it's not a time to continue bullying or being arrogant. Okay, so the pride. So I don't think that on Shabbat morning I said that point enough. That when bullying and the sense of arrogance that could lead to bullying and to insulting others who might be around the camp in the desert, that's not the point of raising the flag. The point of raising the flag is to instill an inner sense of confidence and pride, to say how proud we are to be the people of Israel and have God in our midst. Okay, so now that background, that religious background, is important as we try to make sense of what happened in Jerusalem just the other day with the flag march through the old city of Jerusalem in celebration of Jerusalem Day. So Jerusalem Day is that day on the Hebrew calendar that was the day that the Israeli soldiers, the paratroopers, were the ones, the elite corps of the army, the Israeli army, was able to enter the city of Jerusalem, the old city of Jerusalem, and say to their commanders over their communication system, "Hakotel beyadenu," the Western Wall is in our hands. Right? So we have to remember just a little bit of history. From 1948 to 1967, after the armistice was kind of agreed to with Jordan, like it wasn't formally agreed upon, but it was informally accepted that that was the boundary, that the boundary between Israel and Jordan went through Jerusalem itself, and that the old city of Jerusalem was in Jordanian hands. So from 1948 to 1967, we Jews had no access to the old city or to the Western Wall. Before 1948, we had access, limited, but through the British mandate. So we were allowed this very kind of like the size of your computer screen right now was about the size of the area of the Kotel that Jews had access to pray. But we were not allowed to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, because that would, the British authorities thought that could be a signal of inciting violence or something like that against the Arabs. So we're not allowed. So if you Google shofar Rosh Hashanah between 1917 and 1948 under the British mandate, there's a YouTube video explaining how people kind of smuggled in a shofar and blew a quick Tekiah Gedola on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur just to outwit the British authorities, just to fulfill the mitzvah of blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But so we were not allowed to blow the shofar, but we were allowed to gather there to pray at that sliver of a kotel, 1917 to 1948 under the British mandate, or 1918 to 1948. But from 48 to 67, no access at all. 1967, then, what turned out to be Yom Yerushalayim, that day during the Six-Day War, the iconic picture of the paratroopers looking upwards at the Kotel, kind of like at the Kotel, but further up. It's kind of like a sideways glance like that, kind of implying maybe that they're also praying to God or acknowledging God's presence in that moment. And an unbelievable moment. Those of us who love Israel, care about Israel, can't help but feel the emotion in that moment captured in that picture of the paratroopers there at the Kotel, and then the Israeli flag waving from the Temple Mount. right? So it's a matter of pride. It's unbelievable. And since then, access not only to Jews to the Kotel, but to the Muslims to the Temple Mount and to the mosques there to pray, and to the Christians to have access to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, right? So under Israeli rule, all religions have equal access to their centers of religion, houses of worship that are in the Old City, which was not the case between 48 and 67 when it was under Jordanian rule. So I firmly, as I said on Shabbat morning, I firmly believe in and support this Jerusalem Day, this Yom Yerushalayim, as a day in Jewish history to celebrate the fact that Jerusalem is and will be the undivided capital of the Jewish state of Israel. Okay, I firmly, heartily, 100% affirm that statement. Okay, with that being said, since 1968, there wasn't. I think that very first year that there was no, I'm sorry, it was 1968. 1 year later, just 1 second. Jerusalem Day is 1 week to the day before the holiday of Shavuot. So those of us who remember Cantor Gershon Levin, may he rest in peace, longtime chazan of our congregation, know that he was born and raised in Yerushalayim. He's a 7th generation Yerushalmi, and he remembers clearly going, and he's told me that story several times, that what happened during the 6-Day War, and 1 week later, going to the Kotel to daven there for Shavuot services. Amazing, right? So 1 week after the 6-Day War, rubble all around, being able for the very first time to be able, as a Jew, as a Jerusalemite, as an Israeli citizen, to be able to daven the holiday of Shavuot services at the Kotel. Amazing, amazing experience. So in 1968, 1 year later, the very first Jerusalem Day after that, the head of one of the yeshivas in Jerusalem, which is called Mossad Harav Kook, the Rabbi Kook Institute, named for one of the first chief rabbis of Palestine, British Mandatory Palestine, Abraham Isaac Kook. So his son, Tzvi Yehuda Kook, was the head of the yeshiva, and he led the yeshiva students on a march through the old city of Jerusalem to the Kotel on Jerusalem Day. So that was the very first flag march. But it turns out his route avoided the Muslim quarter on purpose, right? The route that route went from Jaffa Gate down to the Jewish quarter and then into the then to the Kotel. So those of us who have been to Israel, who've been to you can picture the Jaffa Gate, right? You walk through the Jaffa Gate and you walk straight. You walk straight, you're going down the main street of the shuk, of the market, right? You're going downhill, kind of steps are a little bit slippery, precarious. Keep going down all the way to the dead end. Turn right, you get into the Jewish quarter, and turn left at some point. You're going through the streets and you get eventually down many, many more steps to get to the Kotel. So that's the route. Well, not exactly the route because everything's been built up since 1968. 1968 was the first time I went to Israel with my parents in July of 1968. And I remember going to the Kotel. That's I was 6 years old, and I still remember going to the Kotel. I think we went through the Zion Gate then, but it doesn't matter. No, we went through the Jaffa Gate because we stayed in a hotel that was, nobody would stay in this hotel anymore today, but there was a hotel kind of near the Jaffa Gate inside the old city there, and that's where we stayed. I can imagine, which is kind of like a Christian quarter. Nobody stays there anymore. But hey, that was 1 year after getting Jerusalem. That was the thing to do. So anyway, that was the route that Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Kook took with his students for that very first Flag Day March, and that was the route from 1968 till the early 2000s. Okay, so for 30 some odd years, that was the route. It was then changed to go through the Muslim quarter. Why? To do what I said the Israelites were not supposed to do when they were to have their flags. They were not supposed to use the flag as an excuse for bullying or for a sign of arrogance. The flag was not meant to say, hey, look at me, look how great I am, I'm better than you, look at me, you, and then start insulting other people. That's not what the flag is supposed to do. The flag is supposed to instill a sense of strength inside of you. And if you have that inner strength, this is my religious argument, and it doesn't get what it's kind of borderline what we usually do here with Jews in the news, not to talk about religious topics necessarily, like religious. Well, anyway, the idea is, my sense is that if you are strong on the inside, then you don't need to convey that strength by bullying somebody else. To me, bullying then is a sign of weakness and cowardice. That's essentially anybody who's a bully, there's something wrong with them, and the bullying reflects something wrong with their personality, as a weakness, a cowardice on their part. But we can delve into the psychology of bullying some other time, but there are plenty of articles about that, why people are bullies. So when the people marched, I'm looking at an article from the Times of Israel, at Jerusalem flag march, chants of death to Arabs and assaults on Palestinians. Okay, so this was from the article that was in the Times of Israel on March 18th. Okay, thousands of Israelis took part in the Jerusalem flag march on Thursday, but the highly controversial annual event, again featuring racist chants and scuffles with Palestinian residents as the largely teenage religious nationalist participants made their way through the old city's Muslim quarter. But despite several dozen instances of violence and harassments by Jewish participants and pre-march threats by Gaza terror groups, the rally managed to conclude without a major incident. Relative terms, what a major incident is. But 2 years ago, Hamas fired a barrage of rockets at Jerusalem to coincide with the march, leading to an 11-day war between Israel and Gaza. So that did not happen. There are things that happened prior to that, right? There was a Gaza op that was done in which Israeli armed forces assassinated several leaders of Islamic Jihad in Gaza, but there was nothing that happened from Hamas in Gaza or Islamic Jihad last week on Jerusalem Day. Well, what did happen was yeshiva students from around the country were bussed into Jerusalem, and two cabinet ministers, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, actively participated in this march, which went through the Muslim quarter. Now, those of us who have been to Israel before may never have been to the Damascus Gate. And that's perfectly reasonable. When you go to Israel, especially on a tour group, you're not going to go to the Damascus Gate. It's not safe. It's not because when you're walking as a group, clearly a Jewish group, through the Damascus Gate and in the Muslim quarter area, that is just not a smart thing to do. And you would sense the anger on the faces of the Muslim residents of the Muslim quarter. So there's absolutely no reason to go into the Damascus Gate or through the Muslim quarter. Absolutely, there's nothing historical to see. If you're a Christian, there's a reason to go. And there's a difference between a Christian group and a Jewish group. And Muslims are okay, relatively speaking, to Christian groups, at least obvious Christian groups walking through, because part of the Via Dolorosa, for Easter, goes through the Muslim quarter. Okay, so if you're a Christian, you'd want to go there. All right, and for that's reasonable to do, and it's safe for Christians to do that. And there is, the Jesus's walk with the cross is reenacted with, doing this walk, the Stations of the Cross, it's called. So that's done safely every year, no problem. But Jews going through there, I remember being in the Hartman program, that 3-year program that I did with rabbis of all denominations, went to Jerusalem every summer for 3 weeks and a week in the wintertime and study in between. Fabulous program. One of the modern Orthodox rabbis on the program proudly showed a couple of us in the Muslim quarter, the yeshiva, the dormitory that he stayed in while his year of study in the Muslim quarter. And so this Reform rabbi friend of mine and I are looking at each other like, would we even contemplate such a thing to do, despite the fact that we fully agree that Jerusalem is the undivided capital of the Jewish people? Would you still go and do something that would kind of be dangerous, risk your life, and constantly be in the face of the Arabs there? Is that really what it means to be Jewish? Does that mean what it means to be Israeli? That we're in your face? Do we have to do that? So that's what I'm questioning about this march, and this idea that tens of thousands of people marched, were bussed in, and they were singing. What are they saying? An Arab is a son of a b. Okay, I'm not even the word is not fully okay. B star star CH. Okay, so an Arab that's what they're chanting, walking through with the Israeli flag draped around them or holding the Israeli flag. So to me, that's a busha, as I said on Shabbat, a busha. It's more than an embarrassment. It's a disgrace. And I would say it's a religious disgrace to use the Israeli flag, which is not just a secular image of the state of Israel. The Israeli flag was designed based on a talit. So there's a religious symbolism of the blue stripes on the Israeli flag are the blue stripes of the talit, and the Jewish star, of course. It's not just the secular image of the state of Israel. There's a religious image there. And how can you, while you're draped in the flag, which is supposed to remind us of a talit. So if you're draped in a talit, a holy garment where you have tzitzit on the garment, all right, and these yeshiva students are wearing tzitzit, right? So to scream and chant, an Arab is a son of a b, it just goes against what Judaism teaches. Okay, and to state that you have the right to do that because we are citizens of the state of Israel. No, you don't have the right to insult somebody else. Okay, nobody gives you that right. Or to argue, you have the right to walk through the Muslim quarter. Yeah, everybody has the right to walk freely, independently through the Muslim quarter, but you're organized as a group of 10,000 people. Clearly, your point in marching as a group of 10,000 people is to show something, right? You're not just walking innocently. 10,000 people happen to all of them, all together individually, just happen to be there at the same time? No, they're there on purpose. And so on purpose, clearly to be inciting if you were walking silently, maybe, but still I would argue, no, there's no reason to have to walk through the Muslim quarter. But they weren't walking silently. They were marching, chanting, death to the Arabs. Death to the Arabs, and an Arab is a son of a, okay? That, wrong in so many levels. So instead, they were all, not instead, at the same time that horrific march was taking place, it was, thank goodness, that, let me say it this way. You got 10,000 people marching, then you need somebody to protect those 10,000 people, right? So the Israeli army then has to be deployed into the Muslim quarter too. So that also, it's one thing, absolutely right for the Israeli army to be deployed in all places in Israel. Absolutely, absolutely. But you can understand that some people might not be so happy to see an Israeli soldier. Okay, you can understand that for whatever reason. Normal people can understand that not everybody would see an Israeli soldier and be happy seeing an Israeli soldier. Okay, and that's not to say that the Israeli soldier doesn't have the right to be there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you can understand that not everybody would be happy to see an Israeli soldier. So with 10,000 people marching, you need lots of Israeli soldiers to protect them. That further adds fuel to a potential fire. And thank goodness that fire didn't happen. Okay, thank goodness. But the fact that 2 cabinet ministers were there to participate adds a whole new layer to what this march was through Jerusalem, and just adds another layer to understanding the complexities of the Israeli government now and the challenges it has, whether those supporting it and those against it, to say it's another issue that marks what could be a critique of the Israeli government. Okay, and just the fact that the Israeli budget is being voted on as we speak, which has tens of millions of shekels, if not hundreds of millions of shekels, being set aside to support yeshiva students. That's a whole other discussion too, right? The Israeli government is just supporting a welfare state, and that enables yeshiva students not to have to go to work, and they just can continue to study in the yeshiva, and it's hundreds of millions of shekels for this. So, so it's just that's the main thing that's being argued right now. A judicial overhaul is still being debated, and the negotiating team is still working with President Herzog. So it's a mess. It's a mess in Israel, and the march through the city of Jerusalem, the old city, through the Muslim quarter, was just another layer to the mess that's going on in Israel. So while that march was going on, there's a more liberal charitable organization called Tag Meir, which is, I'm not sure I would call it a charitable organization, but it represents, a kind of social justice with a liberal kind of bent to it. And they had hundreds of people gather to walk through the other quarters of Jerusalem. So, 4 quarters of the old city. You have, if you're looking at it from west to east, so the Jaffa Gate being on the western side of the old city, when you walk into the Jaffa Gate, yeah, you could see the Jaffa and the road from Jaffa Gate through the old city, kind of like the heart of the old city. So as you walk down, you have the Christian quarter on your left and the Armenian quarter on your right. Okay, I'd recommend people walking through the Christian quarter. It's kind of interesting to go there. To go to if you know of the book Footloose in Jerusalem, It has like several walks that you can take around different neighborhoods in Jerusalem. There's a walk through the Christian Quarter to take to see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, to go to a Lutheran church that's across the street from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that has a tower that you can walk up, take the steps to walk up. I have a beautiful view of the old city at the top of that tower. I think it's like 10 shekels to walk up. That's great. Christian Quarter, safe to walk through. Armenian Quarter, safe to walk through, fascinating to go through. And there's Armenians are known for their pottery, beautiful pottery shops in the Armenian Quarter. Keep going down, and then the bottom left, that's the Muslim Quarter. Again, not the safest place to be, right? And then to the right is the rebuilt, the most modern of all the quarters, because it's rebuilt since 1967. That's the Jewish Quarter. So so the Tag Meir people were handing out flowers to anybody they met as they were walking through the Christian, Armenian, and Jewish quarters, as an alternative to the incendiary flag march that was happening. Just to point out to the residents and anybody they met in those three other quarters, don't think that all Israelis are like those people marching through the Muslim Quarter. Know that there are other people in Israel who care about love and harmony, and here are flowers to represent that. So again, so you can understand my take on all of this and how disgusted I was to read about this Jerusalem march, and how disgusted because it goes against my understanding of what it means to be Jewish and Israeli. Okay, so I'm not Israeli. I do have a Teudat Zehut number, an Israel identity number, but from the time that our family lived in Israel, but I am not a citizen of Israel now. But if I lived in Israel now, I would not have marched with them through the Muslim Quarter. I would be, maybe I would have volunteered with the Tag Meir to hand out the flowers. And I think I'd be participating in those rallies every Saturday night against, for the, proper judicial reform in Israel. So the idea of what a flag represents and how it's supposed to be this inner strength and not to be an excuse to then bully and insult other people. That's the idea. If only the people marching, if only those yeshiva students could feel comfortable in their own skin to say, hey, I'm strong, I know who I am, Israel exists, and I'm here, and so therefore I know that I'm strong. Just the fact that there are Israeli soldiers walking through all four quarters, that's enough. That's enough for everybody to know that Israel's in charge. Okay? You don't need a march like this to prove, and especially when it comes with insults and chants of death to the Arabs. So that's what I had to say about this. Any thoughts or comments about this? Sylvia, you have to unmute. Yeah, you go.
I did, yes. I have sent you in the past a couple of YouTubes from my cousin Udi, and I wish I'm going to save this recording and I'm sending it to him because I know that this is exactly how he and my family feel, and I'm so happy to hear you say it.
Okay.
And I can't wait to send it to my family.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it needs to be said, and I think plenty of Israelis said it, and op-ed writers in Haaretz and other non-right-wing publications in Israel already have written about it a lot. So I quoted from Chaviv Rettig Gur from the Times of Israel also wrote. So, enough has been said about it to express criticism and disgust about what happened, but it gets to the bigger political issues in Israel today, and the fact that Netanyahu is giving in to the United Torah Judaism and the other Haredi parties in his government by giving lots of money to them. It's just awful. It's just just awful. It's as if no, I'm not going to say any more about it. It's, Israel has a lot to deal with right now. I guess some in the opposition were hoping that some of the Haredi parties were going to leave the government because Netanyahu wasn't necessarily going to be giving in to their demands. And then if the budget isn't passed, then maybe the government falls and there's a new election. If there was a new election today, I think Gantz's party would overwhelmingly win, and Netanyahu and Likud would lose 10 to 15 seats in the Knesset. So that's all you can kind of hope for, that somehow the government will fall. So with all these rallies, 20 weeks in a row, with these rallies that are happening every Saturday night, still the government somehow manages to stay in power. And so Israel, the segment of Israeli society that is opposed to this Jerusalem Flag Day march and is opposed to other aspects of Netanyahu's government, has their work cut out for them. Any other thoughts or comments? Yes, Jules, unmute. Yeah, so Jules, you have to, if Judy is not there, you have to go to the bottom of your screen, to the bottom left. There you go. Okay, now you have to turn on your microphone.
I'm still there.
There you go. You did it. 94 years old, Jules. Good for you. You did it. Okay.
What I started to say was something that it struck me a long time ago. The late Bill Gold of the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I wrote in a letter to him once, and I said, "How is it that people go to the movies in the United States, but unlike the military, they never play the national anthem?"
Oh.
They don't.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not done. And why don't they? If we're supposed to be proud of the flag
Yeah.
that we're standing by, which we're allowed to do, then how do we express it? That was just my one observation. The second observation is, how can you say you're indignant now about this? I can see the look on your face.
Yeah.
How indignant are you when you go to teach the children in a school? I'm not talking about teaching them to read Hebrew or to recite the prayers, but what do you teach them about what's behind it? Everybody can go into a class and learn to speak Hebrew and do a lot of things that way, but it still doesn't tell them anything of substance. The reason that I like these sessions personally is because they touch me in an emotional way.
Right.
In a way that being Jewish has never occurred to me. I don't think about Judaism that way.
Well, good. That's the point. So Jules, so teaching kids about this, it's complicated, and I can't really answer it in 15 minutes, but to say this, our Hebrew school time is limited in how many hours a week we have with the kids. So we have to prioritize what we're going to be teaching. But I'm with the older kids for a half hour, 45 minutes every Sunday, and I get into more of the deeper meaning of prayers and concepts like this, and talk with them about Israel, and talk especially the prayers that relate to Israel. So yes, in our religious school, we're talking about it. And then the teen class, because the kids are older and can appreciate conversations like this better than kindergartners or third graders, are able to have more deeper conversations about this. the pride in the flag, that's a controversial thing, Jules, because, the Pledge of Allegiance, I don't think had one nation under God always as the last line of the Pledge of Allegiance, right? That was added just like, what, 50 years ago, 40 years ago? I don't have a problem saying one nation under God, but if I was an atheist, I think I would have a problem with it. And we see also the power of the Christian right in this country that have taken over these images, the civic images, and made them Christian. So that's a whole other conversation too, about whether America is a Christian country or not, and what that means to people who aren't Christian, to see how Christian symbols are, Christmas time in public squares, you have the manger and nativity scenes, and you have this statement, one nation under God, and all of this understanding, well, it's a Christian understanding of God, of course, that the Christian right says that we have to see America, right? And Israel, and I would never suggest that Hatikva should be changed, but you can understand, Kol od balevav panima, forever within our hearts, we've been praying to return to Israel. If you're an Israeli Arab or a Christian, you haven't been for generations been praying to return to Israel, right? And Sion, you haven't referred to Israel as Zion if you're not Jewish. So I can understand why a non-Jewish Israeli might have a problem or be challenged by the words of the Israeli National Anthem. Okay, so that said, that's a whole other conversation too about that. So there's work to be done with these national symbols to help governments understand, we have a variety of people living in our midst and who are citizens of our country. Can everyone equally love the symbols of our country? And if they can't, what can we do about it to ensure that they still love our country and are 100% loyal to our country? So how to teach that, it's one thing to teach it to a kindergartner. It's another thing to teach it to a high schooler, Jules. So it's complicated and it's nuanced. So let's stop here for today. It's good to see everybody today. I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. And for Jews in the News, we'll see you again next September.
Oh,
be well, everybody.
Bye.